Well, look who it is. I see you there, you sultry pair of ears. Doing your chores, walking your dogs, hoovering your fridge, contemplating your navel, or just in the middle of a good poo. Whatever you're up to, come join me with Helen and Mairi as we pull up a chair at a good old-fashioned British pub. This week, we'll talk about dessert-flavoured beers, whether imposing restrictions on yourself helps the creative process, and have a good old-fashioned rant about how much stuff the British Museum has pilfered over the years. So here we are sitting in we've put a flag in it, so it's ours pub, where everything has a Union flag on it, it's playing Rule Britannia on loop, and everyone's just a little bit racist. Taking a quick break after our escape from the bowels of the British Museum to have a drink and a chat about the room what we just did. But first, it's my round. So who's drinking what?
I am drinking tonight a small glass of Amarula. And if you're not familiar with this, it's a cream spirit, sort of similar to Bailey's, but with a marula in it, and it's raspberry, chocolate, and baobab flavour. And it's a lovely, cheeky sort of strawberry milkshake type flavoured cream alcohol with that I got for my birthday from my wonderful husband. And he's run out of Bailey's flavours, exciting Bailey's flavours to get me now. So he's looking more earthy. So I don't really drink, but the one thing I do like is Bailey's and sort of creamy cocktails and Toblerone martinis and things like that.
Oh, wow.
So if it tastes like a milkshake, I'll drink it, basically.
That sounds fancy. I'm getting diabetes just thinking about the different flavours.
Yeah, thankfully I don't have very many of them. But yeah, it's delicious.
Good Lord. I've tried to get on with the creamy cocktails and Baileys and stuff, and just fermented milk or anything like that. It turns my stomach. I can't do it.
Today, I am drinking, I am really bad at choosing beers, so I was left to my own devices in the supermarket, and I went for the two prettiest looking beers. Basically, they're both rainbow holographic beers. One of them is called Overtone, and I think it's it's a pale ale. And the other one, it doesn't say what it is. It has nothing else written on it except for the words, Das ist Techno-Sex. Don't know what it means, but I can confirm it's beer. I just took a sip. It's definitely beer. Beyond that, I don't know what it is. It's a little bit sour. I'm not sure if I'd recommend it, but it's very beautiful can, so I'll be keeping this one.
I love it. Your method of choosing beers is exactly the same as mine. Just what looks fancy, what looks cool, and what's shiny.
Yeah, the coolest artwork. It's so great these days, the art you get on beers, huh?
Mm-hmm.
We have got a lovely little business not far from us that opened a few years ago, and they sell a range of craft beers. They've got stuff on tap that you can take home in a growler, which always makes me giggle. And I often take a trip with John, my husband, to this little business, and he buys the beer to drink, and I just look at all the beautiful cans in the fridge and the beautiful sort of pump art and things, and I just love it. I think they're getting so creative, and I also love the fact that they come in flavours like stroopwafel and what was he drinking the other day? It was like some sort of raspberry cheesecake beer, and I was like, that sounds amazing. But when I taste it, it's still beer.
Raspberry cheesecake beer. Oh, I can feel my teeth falling out as I'm drinking it, but that's a good flavour to have, though. Pardon my ignorance, but what exactly is a growler in the context of beers?
I can see why you asked. It's the one I'm familiar with is a brown bottle, sort of quite tall, a lot bigger than your standard sort of 30 ml bottles, sort of nice and big with a stopper and a nice sort of one of those lovely clip fastens on the stopper, and you basically take it back to the venue, and they will fill it up with a new beer for you every time they've got something new on tap, and they call it a growler. So I just giggle all the time.
That's a great name. I don't understand the origin of it, but that sounds banging. I might just try that. Just take a bottle into a local pub, be like, film a growler, and just see what happens.
Fill it up.
See if I get beaten. I get beaten up. And hi, I'm Jamie again, and I'm drinking a gin and tonic. No, that's bullshit. Everyone knows I'm drinking mead. There's no point in even trying to hide it. Yes,
Let's try.
Are you okay, Jim? Are you blinking help in Morse code? What's going on? Have you been kidnapped? So my mead for this week is a traditional mead by Jack Rat in the Lime Bay Winery. So it's just your bog standard honey mead, goes down very smoothly. This bottle will not last this recording, I can assure you of that. School night be damned. It's sweeter than the wines, the meads I've had in past episodes, because those ones have packed a bit of a punch. So this one, I think, is at risk of being too palatable this evening. But we'll see as the evening goes on. Spoiler warning for this Pubisode. If you've not watched, why would you watch unless you're a patron? You listen. It's a fucking podcast. It's an audio format. I've been doing this since 2021. If you've not listened to last week's episode, please stop this recording immediately, go back and listen to that, and then come in here. We're going to start smacking down all the truths and pulling back the curtain so you can see the gubbins of this puzzle. So last week, Helen and Mairi deftly escaped from the bowels of the British Museum, where they had to get some artefacts into some crates through various rummaging of pockets, deciphering of playing card-based passcodes, interpreting poems with direction locks, and vigorous chewing of the chewing gum to secure these artifacts. Which
mastication.
It was vigorous mastication of the gum. You did brilliantly, both of you. You just sailed through it. I should have realised you're both pros with an escape room body count as high as yours. There was no hesitation whatsoever. So well done, both of you.
Thanks so much. It was great puzzles.
Thank you.
We enjoyed our time in the British Museum.
And I'm a big fan of a directional padlock. I must say, I went out and bought one once when they said they were retiring them. I went out and bought one, and they make great fidget toys as well as sort of a nice piece of memorabilia. So
they do. I'm very pro direction padlock. I could put a poster on the Infinite Escape Room Facebook the other day, being like, "Oh, controversial opinion. Love a D-lock." Not a hint of aggression from anybody, just wild approval. I'm like, oh shit, okay, so that's not controversial at all. People genuinely like this shit. I mean, this is good. More
Are
direction.
Are they really not being made anymore? Did you just say they were like out of commission or something?
I think the main company is it Masterlock. They said that they're not producing anymore, as far as I know. And then every escape room across the country, I think, not breathed a thing, but sort of screamed inwardly and said, "Oh no, we need to stock up."
That goes our business model.
Yeah, and of course, the price of them shot up as well because of their rarity. So suddenly, if your directional lock goes, you're going to have to come up with a new puzzle, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so many, I imagine, escape rooms from like 2015, 2017, that kind of era would have relied quite heavily on those, and they would have been massively abused by thousands of clientele marching through. Like those locks, they're not going to last that long. So they need a hefty stock to keep churning them through. Bless them.
Well, I've never had a directional lock sort of break or fail on me in a room, but those ones that are a sort of barrel with 5 different letters and you turn around, they have exploded literally in my hand as I've opened them.
Exploded?
Wow. I mean, not with gunpowder style effect, but literally just broken apart in your hand, and you kind of look up into where the camera is, and you say sorry. You put it in the corner, and you say, "Oh, I'm really, I'm sorry about that." But there's some locks you can tell deteriorate quite quickly, and we're big fans of at home here. We're big fans of Lockpicking Lawyer on YouTube. If you've ever seen it.
Oh yeah,
I've seen so many different types of locks that he's produced. I'd never heard of a directional lock until I started playing escape rooms, and I don't think I've ever seen one in use anywhere else in any other walk of life. Never seen anyone using one to secure anything apart from an escape room.
That's true, yeah. Because they always, whenever they do the briefing, it's always, "Oh, do you recognize one of these?" And everyone rolls their eyes because, of course, we fucking know what it is. We've seen it 1,000 times. But yeah, Johnny Public comes in and is like, "What is this magical contraption that you think? I do not know how to operate this."
That would make them extra secure, though. If none of the general public know how to use them, you could lock up something like your bike with one, right? Less likely to be stolen.
That's true.
And then you'd come back and you'd be like, "Oh, so Jimmy went north." It'd be something crazy like there's the word "right" in a paragraph, and then that means you go right. There's always something you have to read the whole story before you remembered what your directions were.
And that would be the problem, I think, as well. I think, given how many like escape rooms are just built into our brain now, is that if we put a D-lock on anything in real life, we'd almost like the Riddler. We'd feel compelled to put a clue in there to tell people how to solve it and how to break the lock, because we can't help it, because that's what direction locks are for.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you saw through my ruse straight away with a double tap on the shackle. Like, okay, you did it the first time, it didn't work. As soon as that didn't, of course.
The moment. Well, now, looking back on it now, you did literally say in the text, like, oh, someone had been trying it before, and I bet that person didn't reset it. So even as we were going through, I was like, yeah, this is going to come up.
that was very sneaky.
I felt so smug last night, just putting that little thing in. They've got to double tack the shackle on the D-lock. I'm an evil genius, as I stroked my moustache that wasn't there.
Wait, so you put this in last night? I mean, when do you write these puzzles? How long does it take?
Oh, well, Helen, now you get a peek behind the curtain. I start these puzzles. The idea for the scene usually comes not long after I record the previous one. That's what I try to do, to give myself the maximum amount of time possible to get it done. I finish writing the puzzle usually the day before I'm due to record. And even then, I'm panicking that I've left something out. Not sure what that says about my timekeeping ability, but I work on it. But in the interim between those two, little nuggets of bits. Yeah, but yeah, that specific thing about the double tap on the shackle was a last night late edition. Being that'll shave off 5 seconds of their time.
It's amazing actually, because I totally work the same way as you do. I think pressure and a deadline that's looming closer and closer really does motivate you to do some things. And I actually find sometimes I'm a lot more creative when the deadline is shorter and I'm pushing against the clock, and I get the best ideas then. So why not? If it works for you, if it it's causing stress, but if it works for you creatively, then do it.
Yeah, I often find that if I'm playing like a sandbox video game like Minecraft, or even games like Skyrim, and it works with the puzzle design, I give myself limitations, and that funnels the creative energy, and that usually means that I can knock something out that's fairly cohesive. If it's just go for it, do whatever, I'm like, that is, the parameters are too fucking wide. I cannot work in that. So I go, okay, it has to be. It's set in the 1800s, so it can't have any codes that were made after that period of time, and it's set in this specific place, so it needs to have these elements in there, and that's how it sort of channels into that. But yeah, Mari, when you do your designs, do you like having an open brief when you make stuff, or do you like the restrictions that come with certain themes and things like that?
That's a brilliant question, because I tell every client that gives me an open brief, I'm like, oh, I love open briefs. But I think I'm the same as you. I do prefer it when it's much more narrow. Like, this is the budget, so everything has to be printed under this budget. Or this is the medium, and so we can't go into that. Or these are the rules of the world. And when I have a project that doesn't have parameters, again, I think I'm like you. I force myself into them. Although for me, they're a little bit more deadline based. So like, I'm working on a project now, and I'm just like, if I'm not making progress with it, I will book a meeting with someone where I know I have to present the project, and just put the meeting uncomfortably soon, that I'm like, okay, I have to. Like, if the project will not be done in 2 weeks, I will just be like, okay, well, I'm going to book a meeting for 1 week, and then it just has to be done because I can't reschedule the meeting.
Yeah. Helen, have you dabbled in puzzle design?
Funnily enough, I was going to say that I mean, I'm a board gamer, a puzzler, a escaper, and all kinds of crafty things, really. So I took part in Enigma March, I think 2 years ago, where you sort of do a puzzle every day on a keyword or a theme. And I really enjoyed that, and I shared those with people at work. But what I discovered is that my complexity level bounces around all over the place. I'll make something that's really easy, and I make something that obviously I know how to solve it and what the answer is, but other people look at it and go, no idea. So I've not done anything official, but I do have a nice story about a recent puzzle design, if I can share.
Please do.
Yeah.
So it was my birthday a couple of weeks ago, April, and I woke up to, obviously, opened all my birthday cards, and amongst the cards was a letter. It was an envelope with just a H on it. And I opened it,
Oh.
and it'd come through the door, and I was just sat there, and I sort of opened it and looked at it, and what came out of the envelope was what looked like an advert for a local tree cutting company.
Okay.
They'll come around and trim your trees and do your garden and whatever, trim your bush, that kind of thing. And I was reading this, and I thought, it's just one of these things that's come through, and my husband thought it was for my birthday and put it in. So I went to put it down, and as I did, I noticed it had an American phone number at the bottom, one of these 1-800 numbers. I thought, that's bizarre. And I sort of turned and looked at him, and he was grinning at me, and I thought, this is weird. So I took another look at it, and it ended up being a puzzle. So I gleaned some information from it, which took me onto a website, and then there was all these various. It was a lovely little puzzle hunt, and it had been personalised, to me, as in they said my name, and they sort of referenced a couple of things that that nobody would know unless you provided that information. So I thought, this is really cool. There must be a company out there who takes your details, and they sort of they weave the puzzles in. Anyway, I got to the end, and it said. The last thing that happened was the sort of protagonist said, we'll be in touch when we've got more information for you. And it said the end, and I was like, so is there like another part to come? And my husband looked at me and said, well, there is when I write it. And I said, what? And he said, I had time to write that, but I've got to. And I said, you made this? And he said, yes. I said, oh my God, this is brilliant.
Oh, that's lovely.
And he'd sat up for various nights writing me a puzzle hunt, which I, not to bang our drum, but actually thought was better than a lot of the things I've, commercially available. And it was just the best gift he could have given me, because it came from him, and we wove so many amazing puzzles into it. So I'm beginning to think I'm going to step aside and let him, be the puzzle designer in that. So thank you, John, for listening.
That's amazing.
John, you're a bloody diamond.
He is.
Absolutely banging. Well done. Also in this episode, it's funny, in the last episode, Helen, you mentioned that anagrams are your jam, because there was an anagram in last week's episode. The person that you meet at the beginning of the episode, Ashton Beth Mullet, is an anagram of Heston Blumenthal. So had you taken the time, you would have seen that he was the big bad all along.
We missed that. Good Easter egg, though.
The objects that you found, the mask, the sword, and the plate, are real objects that are in the British Museum right now. I'll pop some links in the chat for you so you can take a look at them. But they are real things.
Is the plate actually stuck together with chewing gum?
Who knows? If it is, it's a really good job. There's no SWAT sticker on there either.
I have a question about that, by the way. Were we supposed to use chewing gum, or was there another more obvious thing to use?
Chewing gum was definitely one of the options that I'd written. So much so that I even put in an extra ad for Mammoth Meeting when you did it.
Nice.
So yeah, the chewing gum was definitely the option that I had in my head that you would do. But you also had the option of using the blue tack from the poster to stick it together.
Oh, nice. Yes. Thinking outside the box.
There's always a choice.
That one, yeah.
Something that I'm trying to do more of in these kinds of puzzle, in these episodes this year, is the sort of the more Monkey Island environmental puzzles, where you can MacGyver stuff together, so it's a little bit more role play, and you can have a bit more fun with stuff. So it's not just in the escape room mindset. It's like, okay, what can we use? I'm in an actual space. Let's play around with what I've got.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is that in a typical escape room, you're kind of limited, because there won't be a jar of super glue or a blue tack on the walls, that kind of thing. It's very much you're limited by what's in there. But that's what I love about the audio ones, is that it is infinite. You could make something pop into existence if you needed it, kind of.
And quite often we have. You could faff around, and as long as it sounds nice, like, I want to have a look around and see if there's any discarded pieces of soft cheese from a mousetrap. I want to chew that and use that as a adhesive. That sounds funny. I'll allow it. Go for it. The first one is a genuine mask from the Kawaka Waku people in Canada.
That was a real name. Wow.
Name. Yeah,
wow.
It wasn't just being racist. That's actually what the name is. And I'll put it in the show notes as well. You can take a virtual tour of their museum. The masks on there are fucking terrifying. Like, I'm not one for but it's all it's got sort of like Native American, because they are the Native Canadians, but it's got that sort of totem pole aspect to a lot of the things. It's like, there's masks of thunderbirds, and they've got whales, they've got wolves and bears, they've got mourning masks that are just sort of really scary looking people heads. The plate that you had, the one from Vienna, so that not broken, but that plate was seized by the Gestapo in World War II.
Wow.
And then somehow, they're not, like, they say that some guy who worked at the museum acquired it. Somehow ended up being given to the British Museum. So that guy's a bell end, for a start, donating Nazi items to the British Museum. But apparently, it wasn't uncommon. The British Museum have got a webpage dedicated to objects that they obtained in World War II that were probably stolen by the Nazis. Like, well, how did you, given that they were on opposite sides at the time, how did you get that, British Museum?
They were all friends, weren't they?
They're not that forthcoming. Yeah. There's two sides. There's usually two sides in a war, but then there's the rich that overlooks the whole thing.
Well, they were all related. Like, the royal families of all the, like, big European countries are all cousins, brothers, sisters, and that goes deep, doesn't it?
And when doing the research for this episode, like looking into the British Museum's just acquisition of whatever the fuck they want and not giving it back, like, there's quite a few things that people are like, can we have that back? That's ours. And the British Museum has just gone, nah, I don't think so. Safer with us because, we're British and you're not. So,
I mean,
terrible.
That's a very
they'll loan it back. They'll be like, we'll loan it back. You can have it in your museum for a few months and then it's back to ours. And it's like, but it literally belongs to them, huh?
Yeah. And like the famous one that people have probably heard is the Elgin marbles, the Greek sculptures. That the thing is, they're actually called the Parthenon sculptures. But of course, because it's British, we name them after the fella who nicked them, the Earl of Elgin.
That's quite a what's the word I'm thinking of? That is quite a theme, I think, isn't it? With the history is we'll name it after someone who sort of walked past one day and went, oh, I like that, I'll name it after me, rather than the person who actually did all the work and things. So it's not uncommon.
Let's get into it. Let's get political. So, what do you think that with these kinds of objects, do you think that the British Museum should give them back, or is it a case of it was so long ago, shit changes hands during times of war, finders keepers, losers get fucked?
Well, so my opinion, and this is probably sidestepping the controversy somewhat in being the nice neutral answer, the sort of on the fence. But why don't we just make? Because every time I walk around a museum, I think, oh, look at all these pretty things, but I have no idea whether they're the actual original pretty thing or they're a remake of the pretty thing, or and so for a lot of people, I think if somebody was able to make a picture like that, make a plate like that, or recreate it in some way and just put that in the museum and say, this is what it looked like, how lovely is this, and then give the original back to whoever wants, if they want it. If they say, do you know what, keep it, then stick it, keep it. But yeah.
What are the chances that most of the important cultural artifacts that we see, the really important shit, it is just a replica?
Yeah.
And the real thing is in storage 50 feet underground in a concrete vault.
This is what I never know. So unless it literally says replica, at the bottom of the label next to it, then I just assume that, if it looks old, it's old. And if it's, otherwise they might have just made a pretty looking replica of what they think it looks like, etc.
It's actually sort of similar to what Helen just said. So a couple of years ago, I actually did a ton of work in VR. And one of the projects I worked on was transposing, I don't know what the right term is, but basically like LiDAR scanning objects in a lot of high detail and putting them in VR. And I did a commission once for a museum. And it was a bunch of sculptures in a museum with the idea that anyone, anywhere in the world could put their headset on and go and explore it. But it does raise a lot of interesting questions, right? Because this was like an art gallery. I don't know if I'm still under NDA, by the way, so I'm not going to drop names, but there is art galleries around
Let's
the world.
say it was the British Museum.
Yeah. There's actually a brilliant Instagram account called the British Museum.
Yes, I've
highly recommend looking it up.
Yeah.
It wasn't them. But anyway, point being is I was given access to lots of objects, took scans of them, put them in VR. And yeah, this was like 4 years ago, VR, but they were really good. And we had a lot of people viewing these objects from all around the world. And it was open source, right? You could like take photos of it. You could put pictures of things in your project. And I don't know why all museums like the British Museum don't just make all of their objects completely open source and like not even license out the 3D scans. I mean, like give them back and keep the 3D scans and do whatever they need to do, continue working on them, but in a remote capacity. This is talking as a game designer. I have no idea what the intricacies of like any of this are, but the technology is there and it's getting amazing, even better every year. I think there's a solution that is no borders. It doesn't matter if an object is within the UK or abroad. I think there's a way for everyone around the world to enjoy it, because you also have to consider like, yeah, objects can be repatriated, but like still, even if like a museum were to send a bunch of objects to a country, what's to stop the leader of that country just putting them in their private residence and being like, yeah, it's back home now. I think it's more about giving as many people as possible access to those objects to learn about history, to study at school. I think it's like a bigger question. I'm like, yeah, I mean, honestly, I could probably rant about this for hours based on my tiny, limited experience as a VR designer. But yeah, it's a really interesting question. I think, but my TLDR is I think technology can help with this problem in the future. It's my
I like
2 cents.
That's really good. I mean that's something that they've done in Egypt with the Rosetta Stone, because the British Museum aren't going to give it back. Like that's their thing. It's like it's almost the symbol of the British Museum is the Rosetta Stone. So what Egypt has done instead is you can go to the spot where the Rosetta Stone was discovered and then scan a QR code and it brings up an augmented reality version of the stone.
That's
that you can
cool.
walk around. So it's not quite the same thing, but it's a damn good next best option. But that begs the question then. Why don't we do virtual representations of these objects, the most important cultural artifacts from across the world, the Mona Lisa, the Rosetta Stone, have them as replicas or digital versions, and then all the originals get put into a central World Bank vault, almost like a supervillain lair of like Gru from Despicable Me. The most important cultural objects go into this one area, and then Nicolas Cage comes in to fucking nick them, because that's how the film's going to work.
I think that's a brilliant idea, to be perfectly.
It writes itself.
I do think that technology is amazing, and that it's going to give us access to so much that we wouldn't have been able to see, or that, it will be able to recreate things that we can see with our own eyes that haven't been possible before. But I do like I said, I'm a very visual person. I quite like I like the textures on things. I like to see the weight of a thing and stuff like that. So it is always nice to see things in the flesh. And I guess if we're going digital, it's kind of like, now we're going to sell you the NFT of the Rosetta Stone and things like that. And it's going to get crazy, isn't it? And like, now who owns the rights to it? So yeah,
that's true. I mean, that does raise another question in a similar vein of, at what point does an object that has cultural significance, at what point does that belong to its adopted country? So say you have an object that was created in ancient Greece, that was then pilfered by the Romans when they sacked the city, which was then pilfered by the Arabs when they sacked the city, which was then pilfered by the British when they sacked the city. Like, where does that then go? Because it's part of 4 different cultures' history. It's an important part.
I think we need to bring back a good old heist. Let's get people in from different countries who can heist something from the British Museum and then take it to their country, because then they've pilfered it. It's now theirs. We'll just keep going.
I've always wanted to try and nick the stones from Stonehenge and take them back to West Wales.
It is amazing, actually, thinking about it, how many escape rooms I've played that do feature stolen treasures. And I'm thinking specifically of monuments in Cave Escape in Nottingham. If you've played it, it's all about the amazing stolen treasures and things. And a lot of escape rooms you've got to find the stolen artifacts. I've seen various other sort of museum-based rooms. I played one that's just opened in Ely, which is Mystery at the Museum, and it is a great source of intrigue and mystery and sort of, solving the puzzle of what happened to this item, where it is now, who was involved in it. So it is a great theme, and I that's why I really enjoyed last week's episode, because it was just so much fun to feel like I was part of one of those adventures.
Oh, you're too kind. And lucky, you're on the right side.
It's funny you mention Cave Escape in Nottingham. Have you played their other one, their mammoth burger themed room?
What?
Whoa!
We're coming full circle then, brand new room. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but the idea is you're archaeologists and you go down, and it's you can see the whole purpose of the escape room is to synthesize mammoth DNA, and you can sort of make a choice as to who you give the DNA to, and one of the options is a company who wants to make mammoth burgers. And I thought that's where you got it from, Jamie.
No.
I was
Amazing.
like, this is a recent escape room.
Holy shit, did I accidentally get a real sponsor?
I mean, you might have done. There's a real company name, but I can't remember what it is.
I'm getting in touch with Cave Escape this weekend and be like, hey, guess what? We've accidentally advertised your escape room.
It's a great room.
Drinks. I'm going to put you on the spot now, both of you. Not your favorite escape room. Let's not.
I thought you were going there.
That's a horrible. No, it's not that. But I will say, an escape experience to recommend. First thing that pops in your head.
I am going to say it is an escape room. It's in Edinburgh. I feel like I should represent the city I live in. Case Closed by Edinburgh. Case Closed by Edinburgh. Case Closed in Edinburgh is a company that have 2 rooms now, and I would recommend their first room as genuinely, in my opinion, the best in the UK. And I'm not recommending because I think it's the best. It's just so different. It's a murder mystery. And you go in and you're given like all the tools of the trade, like a fingerprint analysis and like gunshot residue analysis. And like you have roles to play as like a police investigation, but it's not even about escaping or solving it. It's about the story. Because as you uncover more beats in the story, like it completely changes the case. And you're not on a timer at all. Like I think you have like 90 minutes if you want, but you're really supposed to just go in there and be whoever you want to be within that space. You have to like make phone calls. You have to do like, honestly, it's amazing. I worry I overhype it, but genuinely I do worry I overhype it because a lot of enthusiasts are now coming up and playing it and they're like, yeah, it was really good. But I'm like, no, but this is a really unique experience and it cannot be missed. Genuinely, if anyone listening or either of you guys coming to Edinburgh, only book Case Closed and then go home because it's the best room. They actually just opened a new room though. I don't know. I haven't played the new room yet. It sounds just as unique, but if you can only do one, do their first one, which is like a traditional murder mystery. I think they've just named it The Murder of Max Sinclair. Might be wrong, but yeah, just Google Case Closed. You'll find them. It's great.
Ooh, high praise indeed. Goodness me. Yeah, if ever I go that side of the border, I'm going to definitely check it out. That sounds great.
It's really good.
I really love every escape room I've done, and part of why I love them so much is the creativity that goes into them and the amount of effort and time, especially some of the owners, the rooms I've met that are run by the owners themselves, and they're just so, they love their rooms so much. And even things like, the Crystal Maze experience. Growing up, I watched the Crystal Maze on TV, always wanted to go on it. I never got to. And, now there's an experience out there where you can go and pretend you're in the Crystal Maze. And things like, Phantom Peak, all these amazing big immersive experiences you can
love Phantom Peak.
I know, it's such fun, isn't it? I wouldn't call it an escape room, but it's something where you can get immersed and you can just forget about the world. But it's also the same in escape rooms. And I think that's the thing, is I go into one with some really good friends and we never go in there to beat the record or to just solve puzzles, but we literally show each other what we're doing, and we kind of solve together. We always celebrate when we have a victory, and then we spend ages afterwards with the GM or the owner going through and going, this is amazing and this is amazing, and we always compliment them. And I think the best experience you can have in an escape room is to get some really good friends, go in and just have a really fun time and appreciate what effort has gone into running these, because they are just they are such an amazing pastime and such an amazing thing to go and do and take you out of the real world for a while. Is that sort of on the fence enough for you?
I said that's a very eloquent and very well worded way of completely sidestepping the question.
Yes. Yes. And just one thing I forgot to mention earlier when we were talking about the British Museum. Did you ever see Codex about 2006 with Tony Robinson? It was basically a game show based around solving puzzles and finding artefacts in the British Museum. Available on YouTube, I think. So you can go and check it out. Codex, it was called. And they did a public version of it after the show had finished filming there. You could go and follow a little trail around and find objects, and then you got a little badge if you solved it correctly. So even back then they were doing these lovely sort of, treasure hunt style puzzle experiences. So
shit, that is my jam. I love that.
I know. I thought you might like that. Yeah. So yes, definitely check that
out. I believe that the barman at the, what the fuck is this pub called? I believe the barman at the, we've put a flag in it, so it's ours pub, has rung the time gentleman please bell. He looks a lot like Al Murray, which is disconcerting. And he's giving us the eye as if we don't look like we're local and he wants us out. So before we get thrown out into the street, something we've started to do is everyone goes around and gives a recommendation for something cool.
Well, I'm not a big social poster. I don't really have an account that anybody would bother following, but I do help out on a Tuesday night on a Twitch stream called Quizzy Dan. And on there we are following the amazing Puzzle Boat series. We're on 9 now, and Puzzle Boat is a series. It's basically a puzzle hunt like your MIT mystery hunts and things like that, and we just sit there on a Tuesday night, and Dan does the puzzles and I just interface with the chat for him, but we are solving these puzzles, and they are written by the amazing Foggy Broom, and he's an amazing puzzle writer.
Nice. And
we have so much fun solving them. So Dan also streams every now and again with online Steam games that he's found that are sort of puzzly, and he does cryptic crosswords on a Thursday. So if you want to tune into his stream at any time, you'll probably find me there on a Tuesday as well, being funny in the chat. So,
I love it. That's great. Yeah, we'll definitely put the links to the show notes and to that.
I would recommend, so there's this showcase coming up on Steam called the Cerebral Puzzle Showcase, and I'm recommending it because I'm on the fence, and in that there are like hundreds of really good puzzle games are going to be debuted, going to be showcased, going to be discounted, all like Steam games, so like your big names. But the Cerebral Puzzle Showcase is going to run on Steam from the 23rd to the 30th of May, which enjoy.
As if my Steam library at the moment is just full of games that I've played for 10 seconds and going, yeah, that's nice, and then never touch and just keep buying more.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can break my streak with Skyrim and Mana Lords, but we'll see. So as listeners know, one of our illustrious hosts, Mike Collins, who is currently on a well-deserved break for paternity leave, has another podcast called Pedagodzilla, which is a mash of pedagogy and pop culture. So it's learning about learning, but with a pop culture lens. So things like, could Yoda have been a supply teacher? And, cheeky bugger that he is, he's only gone and written a bloody book, isn't he? So, the Pedagodzilla book is now available for purchase on Amazon. Yeah, so it's not just Mike. The book is by Mark Charles, Rebecca Ferguson, Mike Collins, and Elizabeth Ellis. And there's 2 chapters that caught my eye when I flicked through it. I should have bookmarked them, but So one of the chapters is, how does Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy help Arthur Dent take a cognitive load off? Just purely based on the reference to Hitchhikers. I'm sold on that. And then the other one is, how does Julie Andrews escape the Nazis with active learning? I mean, I'm sucking in straight away. That's great. And if I learn something
great title.
Yes.
I'm all done for it. So I'll put a link in the show notes for it. The Pedagodzilla podcast in book form, co-written by our wonderful co-host, Mike Collins. Check it out now. If I don't see the words Heston fucking Blumenthal in that book, I'll be very disappointed. Right, I do believe that the last orders bell has gone, and this balding, slightly extra muscled, tattooed, roided up fella who you kind of know which way he swings on the voting platform. He is getting ready, rolling up his sleeves to throw us out into the dark cold nights. We better make a hasty exit as we leave. So we will see you next time, where we're escaping from Heston fucking Blumenthal's pocket while we're shrunk down to tiny people. Is that a theme that could be legit in an escape room? We'll find out. We love you lots, and we'll see you next time on the Infinite Escape Room. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
As the door closes behind us, we go cold and hungry in search of chips and chicken wings. I mean, what is your takeaway preference of choice after a night out?
I'm hoping that Heston Blumenthal will be feeding us, normal sized portions of amazing foods into his pocket while he's
That's my preference.
Yeah.
Jimmy Crumbs, I'm going to stuff quail egg neck brace into your mouth, and you'll be bloody happy about it. I'm going to get Mike to record that bit as well. That was fucking awful.